There are video games that come and go, leaving a small impact on the gaming industry. But Dragon's Dogma 2 is not one of those games. Dragon's Dogma first released in 2012 and didn't get a sequel till 2024. It's impressive that we even got a sequel to Dragon's Dogma, let alone one that has made a huge splash on the internet like this one has. I see all these funny, wacky clips showing up on my feed, and it just shows this game in the best light. I remember playing the first Dragon's Dogma and it just never really clicked with me. It was more complicated than I was used to, and I just dropped it. However, the hype behind the sequel was so much that I had to jump back into the series to give it another try. And honestly, I'm so glad I did. Dragon's Dogma 2 is an amazing game, flaws and all. Capcom has a way of integrating realism with fantasy in a very fascinating way. You can't just simply fast travel in this game without using a resource or a mode of transportation like an ox cart, which by the way, can be attacked by enemies on the way to your destination. This, along with its punishing difficulty, can leave some gamers turned off, but if you hang in there and learn the game's mechanics and systems, then you will have a great time. You start off the game by creating your character, and another character that acts as your main partner, which in this game is called a pawn. Pawns are part of a grander system. Basically, pawns are AI-controlled party members that help your character, who is essentially the chosen one, called the Arisen in this world. So pawns are essentially that, pawns for you to use in your party, which is pretty dark if you think about it too hard, so let's not, and instead talk about how they work. You make a main pawn that acts as your sidekick throughout the game, fully customizable, and then you have the option to have 2 pawns made from other players that you can add to your party. These have limited customization. You can't change their skills or classes, but they help out the group a ton. They can do cool things like showing you secrets that they found in their adventure with their players. Another cool thing is that you can high-five them after a tough battle, which is always satisfying. It's a cool system that allows you to kind of connect with players' creations in a very unique way. One major annoyance I have with the pawns is their dialogue. My goodness, can these guys talk a lot. Like if they would just cut out, I don't know, half of the dialogue that these pawns spout out, it would be perfect. Like don't get me wrong, it's cool when the pawns note something in the world like the view of the landscape or obtaining resources, but when they say the same phrases over and over again, it can kind of get grating. Thankfully, I tend to tune them out, but it's still worth noting. Dragon's Dogma has both amazing features and annoying features. Depending on your patience with some of these odd additions, you may get frustrated. However, I think the good outweighs the bad. Like, yeah, I hate how many times my ox cart gets destroyed, but I also love how they integrated scenarios like when the ox carts can get attacked, because it makes the world feel that much more alive. These monsters can be so difficult, which leads us to the combat. Combat is crazy fun, with class skills, abilities, and different augments making the combat overall a blast. There are a few issues I have, like the lack of a lock-on button. I understand that Dragon's Dogma has its own thing going, but come on, give us a lock button. That would be so nice. Outside of that, I don't really have many complaints when it comes to the combat. The combat feels good with excellent feedback in both the visuals and the controls. You start the game with the choice of 4 classes: Thief, Fighter, Mage, and Archer, with more fascinating classes unlocked later on. I particularly love the Mystic Spearhand class. It is a very stylish class with both close and long range attacks. It's weird because talking about some of the general structure of the game makes it seem very cookie cutter, but this game is so much more weirder than its peers. Capcom, the developers behind Dragon's Dogma, have weird and unique elements in their games that make them stand out from the rest of the crowd. And Dragon's Dogma 2 is no exception. In fact, for Monster Hunter fans, you can definitely feel some of the inspirations, I guess, from Monster Hunter in this game, just by the movement and climbing on different monsters. It definitely feels a little bit like Monster Hunter, but it plays completely different. But what I will say is that a lot of these enemies, especially the big ones, have really cool encounters, and they feel very natural. You can have a giant monster fall in a gap and act as a bridge for your party, and then you can whack his fingers to have him plummet to his death. That is so amazing. I just love how creative this is. And this is just one little aspect in Dragon's Dogma. You can even fly around on a griffin if you can hold long enough to it. Pawns can even catch you if you fall off a very high cliff. Mine don't, but yours could. That is the beauty of Dragon's Dogma 2. It is a weirdly wonderful game with annoying gameplay elements that make you want to suplex your console, but at the same time, the game has so many fun secrets for you to discover. The open world is full of discoveries. It's pretty wild how they managed to keep this world interesting with its limited fast travel and no mounted rides. Outside of, like I said, the Ox card and the Fairy Stones. I do have to touch on one aspect of this game that kind of got a lot of heat recently, and that is the microtransactions in a single player game such as this. Yes, I agree. That is bullcrap, and they should not have microtransactions. Thankfully, you don't need to have these microtransactions. Would it make it easier to have a ton of fairy stones? If you don't know what a fairy stone is, it's basically an item you can get in the game, and you can get it as many times as you want. It's kind of rare though, but you can get them at shops and stuff, but it basically helps you fast travel instantaneous without, going into an Ox card or whatever, which is great. It's such a useful item, especially in a game like this with limited fast travel. And for those who have been on the internet and paying attention to the Dragon's Dogma 2 controversies, yes, they do charge microtransactions for fairy stones and for a booklet that lets you customize your character, again, after you created it the first time. But I will say that while it is kind of scummy that they did this, I don't think it's the actual people making the game. The reason I say this is because you can get all these items in game. And while, like I said, the fairy stones are kind of rare, they're not super rare. Like, you can get them in shops and stuff, and they don't cost too much. If they costed like a fortune, I would be, a little bit more upset. But the fact that they're not, it just goes to show that I think these decisions of putting microtransactions in a game like this is from higher ups and not necessarily the people that are making this game. Again, with that said, that's no excuse for having microtransactions. I don't know. Don't buy microtransactions with this game. You don't need it. It's stupid that there's microtransactions in a single player game to begin with. And what I mean by that is, like, I understand having like costumes and stuff, even though I'm iffy on that because those should be in the game unless it's whatever. The point is, microtransactions, when you're buying these items, it shouldn't be a thing. Like, it kind of feels pay to win in a single player game. I don't know. It's just weird. Thankfully, it is not intrusive. So that's good. That is a little thorn in this game's side. But thankfully, it is not a huge thorn. And I easily just don't pay attention to it. It doesn't come up on your screen. Oh, buy more fairy stones. No, it's there for people who do want to spend money, but you don't need it. Overall, I would not be surprised if this game got nominated as Game of the Year. It is that good, even though there are some elements that do frustrate me, but I will say that I have been thoroughly enjoying this game. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, because I only scratched the surface of what this game has in store. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. God bless.